It is being called the landmark trial, which will be a turning point for police accountability in America. The former police officer, Derek Chauvin, has been found guilty of the murder and manslaughter of George Floyd by kneeling on his neck.
We're joined now by George Floyd's auntie, Angela Harrelson, and his cousin, Paris Stevens. I can't tell you how grateful we are for both of you to join us this morning on Good Morning Britain.
Thank you.
So many of us are feeling relief. That's the word we've heard a lot this morning. How are you feeling, Angela? How are you feeling right now, this evening in Minneapolis?
You know, it was so overwhelming, and I was just so relieved because honestly, we did not know how it was going to go. We were all on pins and needles, and the family, because the family were together, that we had a conference in there watching the whole thing. And when we saw the judge sat down, we knew it was getting serious. And I remember him saying guilty, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, Paris, I mean, couldn't believe it is, of course, such a key point because it is very rare and unusual for police officers to be held accountable in this way. Were you afraid that the verdict may go the other way?
I did have a little worries, and I think that is something that's real because in the past, history has shown itself that even though it seems to be the obvious, but sometimes the jurors did not get it right. Quite often.
Yeah.
Angela, in this case, one of the key pieces of evidence is that piece of evidence the whole world saw. And that was footage from a teenager's mobile phone. Darnella Frazier, 17 years old. She was there when Derek Chauvin put his knee on your nephew's neck, George Floyd's neck. And she held steady filming that entire event. It is heartbreaking. We no longer show it. It's incredibly distressing for anybody outside of the family. I can't imagine what it is like for you. But that moment of courage by a teenager, how much do you credit that for the justice that has been done?
Without her video that event for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, it wouldn't be a story. It would be another Black man killed by the police, but nobody would really know why. And my nephew would be dead. It'd just be everything back to normal. He'll be just another statistic, basically. And without her video, I mean, that video meant everything. And I commend her. She was so brave because she held that phone, that camera, for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. I mean, she held it. She was scared, she was nervous, but she held on. And we and the family, we are so internally grateful to her.
Yes.
Angela, you know, in the court, the prosecution, their closing statement, in the end, they said that we didn't have to consider any other evidence other than just your eyes, basically. Believe your eyes. Watch that video. Believe your eyes. That's what the prosecution said to the jury, and that's what they did. That idea of believing your eyes, do you think the legacy of your relative George Floyd will make America believe their eyes now, the rest of America believe their eyes, that yes, there is systemic racism, that yes, Black people are suffering the most, more than anyone, not the only ones suffering in America, but they are because of the colour of their skin, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. Do you believe that the rest of America will now believe their eyes? Angela.
I believe that America has, I mean, the way this thing affected the whole world, it already did. people were moved around the world. They saw what they saw, and they knew what they saw. And no, you can't convince what the eyes saw. I mean, what they saw is what they saw. And because of that, I think that video is going to be a major breaking point, a major breaking point in making the story what it is, and also defining the truth.
Right.
And I know what I saw. And the funny and the strange thing is, even though we all know what we saw, they still was trying to make it out that we didn't see what we saw. Yeah. It was a tailpipe. It was a tailpipe. And then they tried to blame the bystanders. What happened has changed the world. And it has changed the world that Black America is not looking back. We are going forward. And that verdict validated to us, to Black America, that systemic racism exists. It always existed, that we were not making things up. Because for 400 years, we are the only race I know of in America that have to negotiate equality. We had to negotiate for 400 years, some of it to ride a bus, to be able to vote, to go to school, to get educated. That didn't come to us easy. We had to fight for those simple things that white America had. We had to negotiate. We had to fight for it. But that verdict means everything, that we don't have to fight like that anymore, that change is here and we're going forward.
Powerful, powerful words. Paris, I wonder whether the verdict, while it is guilty, is enough for you now, because of course it's 8 weeks until Derek Chauvin is sentenced. Do you have in your minds as a family what you think would be a just sentence for the man responsible for the murder of your cousin? Or is it simply enough that he was found guilty?
The guilty verdict is the beginning, but we want the max sentence. Whatever the max sentence is, whatever the judge decides, we will understand that. Mr. Chauvin, he will internally have to pay for this. Emotionally, he will be under duress the rest of his life. So whatever the max sentence is, we're going to accept it and we're going to keep moving forward.
Your dignity, both of you right here, right now, is just so inspiring. And we've heard from George's brothers over the length of the case and previously. And I think every journalist I've heard talk about it, we're just taken aback by how dignified the Floyd family and all of you connected to George have been. And it's totally inspiring. And it can be the greatest honour you can ever pay to George. I just want you to pay tribute to George. Tell us about George Floyd. We've heard so many things about the court case, but tell us about George, the person, the father, your nephew, your cousin, the brother, so many of you in the family, the Floyd family. Just pay tribute to George Floyd for us, Paris.
We call him Perry, and the world knows him as George
Floyd.
We know him as being caring. He loved everyone, human beings. And it's ironic that someone didn't treat him as a human being, considering that he was about community.
A lot of community work.
Yes. And what I remember most about him was that he loved sports. He was so talented. And that's a commonality that we had. I love basketball, and so did he. And he was so talented. He was a natural at almost everything that he could do. And he also loved music. He actually was a rapper, and he did have a well-known song that had came out. And in Houston, he was very, very well known. The community adored him.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
he was a mother's boy. And my aunt, she loves to tell the stories about him and him, the mother, being a mama's boy.
It's just beautiful to hear, just to hear your personal memories. It's fantastic.
And Angela, I just wanted to ask, because, you know, in your case, you lost a family member in the most brutal circumstances. But your heart must go out to every other family who has lost a loved one in similar circumstances and has not seen justice done. I mean, your heart must absolutely break for them. And there are, you know, even trials coming up, you know, of people who have lost their lives.
Yes, yes, it does. And whew, when I think about, because before this happened to our family, we used to see the stories on TV, the Trayvon Martins, the Breonna Taylors. But when it hit home, it was a whole nother ball game. And it's extremely difficult. And I just want to tell the families that keep the hope alive. No matter how hard the battle is, we got to go forward. Because our ancestors did that for us. When they took those beatings and those whips and saw their loved ones lynched, there are a lot of them that kept going forward for the hope that there will be a better generation for their family. And that's why we are here today. My mother had 14 children, 10 girls and 4 boys. They didn't have no education, hardly. They had to quit school to work to take care of the kids. All my mother wanted for me was a high school diploma. They were sharecroppers, and her hope kept the family going, that I was able to live off her hope, to thrive off her hope and her love, and we got college degrees. So that's how I tell them, is to keep going. Because even though the fight is hard, we have to remember that our ancestors fought for us, our grandparents fought for us, and we got to keep that going no matter what.
Incredible. Angela, thank you so much. Angela Harrison, who is George Floyd's aunt, Paris Stevens, his cousin. We really appreciate your time and your words and your message this morning. Thank you.